Hi everybody. In this video, we're going to start working on our finish line. So, enjoy. Alright. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to go ahead and click on this plus button so we can add a new 3D scene. And I'm just going to name this finish point. And what this essentially is going to be is very similar to our player, how it was just a container that contained all of the components that the player had, but in this case it'll be the finish point. And so the first thing that I want to add is our mesh, and I'm going to add my own custom mesh that I made in Blender, and I'm going to provide that in the description for you guys. But if you don't feel comfortable with downloading that, I would just suggest using something like a cylinder in this case. And you can mess around with these attributes on the side. Sides will make it a little more smooth for you, by the way. But I'm just going to delete that. And to make things a little more organized, I'm going to go ahead and go to the file system and add a new folder and call it art. And this will contain any art that we ever add to the game. And so I'm going to add another folder inside of that and call it meshes. And this is going to contain all of our meshes from outside the game. And you could even get a little more granular with this. If you ever had a bigger game, you could have, like weapon meshes, armor meshes, stuff like that. But in this case, this should be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and locate that mesh. But the first thing I want to do is I want to head and click into this Open in File Manager button. And that'll just open this for us. And I'm going to head to my desktop because that's where I have mine, and I'm just gonna copy it and just paste it straight in there, and you'll see now we have that. So we can just drag this right in, and this mesh will just come out of the box with things like collision and stuff. And I'm going to show you guys how to do that later on in Blender, later on down the line in the series, so stay tuned for that. But so the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and add what's called a area 2D. And what this is a region of 3D space that detects other collisions entering or exiting it. And what this is basically going to do is it's going to detect when the player is kind of touching this, so we can kind of call any finish events that happen when we touch the finish line. So I'm just going to call this finish area, but you'll see it's giving a warning that it doesn't have a collision shape similar to how it was for this marble. So we can just look for collision shape 3D, and I'm going to do a sphere, and I'm just going to move this up and just kind of scale it up to make it easier for the player to touch. And by the way, guys, I don't think I mentioned this in other videos, but if you want to navigate this 3D space, hold down right click to move your camera, use WASD to move, and use the scroll wheel to go faster or slower. Those are basically all that you need to use. So anyways, for this finish area, what I want to do is one more thing, and that's make sure that other stuff that could potentially run into this finish area don't trigger any finish events. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this collision inside the finish area. I'm going to click on these three buttons to kind of organize things to begin with. And so we can first start with this layer 1, and we can call this world. And we can do layer 2, and we can call this marble. And so basically, you'll see these two separate categories. And so what a layer is, it's saying, hey, I'm on this layer, so anything looking to that layer, here I am. And the mask is saying, hey, I'm looking out for this kind of stuff, so if you're on that layer, I'm looking for you, so be on the lookout. So I'm just going to keep this on layer 1, which is the world layer. I'm going to have it look to the marble layer. Or I'm actually going to name this player, just so it's a little more clear. So it's looking for the player. But now we need to head over to the player just to double make sure, right? We need to make sure that the finish line is looking for things and the marble is also looking for the same thing to keep things consistent between each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip-flop these previous values. So this 1 is going to be a 2 and this that 2 is going to be a 1. So basically this is on the player layer now and it's looking to the world layer. So you see how these are swapped? So now they should be able to interact with each other without having any other things in the world interact with it. So what we can do is we can save that player and we can save this new thing and we'll do objects, create a new folder and just call it finish point and save that. And so now we can go ahead and get started with our scripting on our finish point. Alright, so here I have my reference project pulled up for us to kind of show what I intend for the finish point to do when we enter it. So I'm going to go ahead and move into it. And as you can see, the marble kind of rubber bands to the center point and the camera is also rotating around it. So let's go ahead and add that to our project. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to actually move where the center point is. So let's go ahead and reset this collision shapes position to 0. And then we can just move this finish area itself up about right here, just slightly above the top of the finish platform. And then we can kind of expand this collision area out just to make it a little bigger. And so this center point now is actually going to be like kind of the gravitational pull for us. Because as you can see in the area 3D, we have a gravity, which I already set up earlier that I want you guys to copy. So what we have is space override, which is replace, point, which is on, point center, which should be 0. So everything should be 0. Gravity is 25. The linear dampening space override is replace. And the linear dampening value is 3. And I would encourage you guys to mess around with these values to see what they do. I'm not going to explain them here just because I want to get this video to keep going. But once again, as always, I would encourage you guys to mess around with this stuff. But yeah, we should be good to go here. So now we can go ahead and attach a script to our finish point itself. So this path is fine, so we can create it. And I'm actually just going to turn this template off because we don't need any of those boilerplate scripts like the ready and the process. So we can just create. So now we'll have nothing in there. And so what I want to discuss now a little bit is what's called groups. So if we head into our, or not groups, sorry, signals. And so if we head into our finish area and go into the node tab, there's this signals tab. And so basically what signals are is we can have certain events get triggered when certain things happen in our game. Say another area right here enters the area itself, or maybe another area exits this area, or we could say maybe that when this marble enters the area. So what that'll be is this body entered. And so what body entered is it's looking for a collision shape to be specific. And when a collision shape enters the area, then this body entered signal will be emitted. So we can double click on this body entered and attach it straight to this finish point. So we can just do connect. And now we have this on finish area body entered function that comes. But for now, we can just pass on this because what we want to do is we actually want to affect some of the players of attributes itself, like turning its gravity off, so it doesn't fall to the ground when it enters that finish area. We want to affect the camera's rotation, and we also want to stop the player from using inputs. So first, let's head into the marble script itself, and we can add some booleans, one called can move, and we can set that equal to true, and that's basically just going to check if the player is allowed to use input or not. And we can make another variable, and we can call it level finish, and we can set that to false. And this is just going to check if we want to turn the gravity on for the player or not, specifically when the level gets finished. So here we can do if can move, then we can allow that movement to happen. And then we can do if level finish, gravity scale equals move toward, and we'll go from what our gravity scale is to 0.0, and we'll do it in a time called finish deceleration, which I already wrote, but I'm gonna have you guys write that now. So you can call it finish deceleration. You can make it an export variable that is a float, and you can set that to 0.25, which I found is a good value. So once you do that, we should be good to go in our marble script. So now we can head over to the camera container. And what we can do is we can create a variable, and we can also call it level finish. And we can set that equal to false. And so basically what we're going to do is we're going to say if the level's finished, we want to set our H rotation dot rotation degrees dot y equal to lerp, and we're going to go, I'm just going to copy this right here, which is that H rotation dot degrees dot y, which is our starting value, and we just want to paste that one more time, and we just want to do +1. So we basically want to start at whatever the value is, and we want to do whatever that value is +1, so we can start getting that rotation to happen. And I'm gonna just do finish rotation speed, which we will make a variable in a second, and I'm gonna multiply that times delta. So what we can do is we can do export variable finish rotation speed, and you could also just copy and paste it down here. That's a good idea too. And let me double check my reference project to see what I set it at, and I'm gonna make it a float, and I'm gonna set it equal to 25. And then we just want to kind of flatten the camera down on the X rotation, just so we can kind of get a better angle on the marble. So I'm just going to do this V rotation dot rotation degrees dot X in this level finish check. We're going to set it equal to lerp, and we're just going to paste that one more time. But we're going to want to just go straight to 0. And I'm just going to do it in 2 times delta. And I know that this is a magic number, and you can mess around with this if you'd like, but I don't really think we're going to need to mess around with it that much. So 2 is fine. It's a magic number, but I think it'll be okay. But now what we can do is we can just go else, and we can make sure that our tabs are okay. And we can also just make sure that our rotation degrees.z is always set to 0 by just making sure that it is outside of both of the statements. Okay, so now I think we can head back to our finish point. Oh, we actually need to do one more thing, and that's what to do is add a group to our player. So if we head back into our node on the base script or base node and go to this groups tab, we can write player here and we can do add. And this is essentially like a tag on this player, and we can then look into the entire level and we can say, does this object have a player group? If so, then we want something to happen. And this is just to make sure that any kind of weird errors don't happen. So we can do if body dot owner, which means, so this is the body that it starts as because it has the collision shape, and then we're going to get the owner, which whatever owns it, that's what it is. And then we're going to do is in group, and this is a function that just checks if whatever this is in the whatever we decide it is, which for us it's quotes player because that's what group it's in, right? And then we can start affecting some of those booleans that we just set. So we can first make a reference to the camera. So we'll just call it camera, I guess. And we'll do body dot owner dot get node. And we can head into the player, go to our camera container, right click it, do copy node path, and just paste it in here. And I will say here, this is a bit of a volatile method because if any of the stuff is ever missing or if any of this stuff is ever spelt wrong, we'll run into crashes. But I think we'll be okay because I think there'll always be a camera on the player and the player will always have these values, so we should be okay. So now we can do camera dot level finish equals true, and we can do body dot can move equals false to stop the player from moving, and then we can do body dot level finish equals true. And I want to do one more thing actually to the camera, and that is affect its smooth camera tolerance and just turn it to a really low number. So I'm just going to copy and paste that, by the way. So I just copied it with Control C, and now I'm just going to paste that exact string right here, and then I'm just going to set it to 0.01, so just like a really, really low number. Just so, I just think it feels a little better, but you can mess around with this if you want, throw in an export variable, but I'm not really going to touch it after this, so I think we'll be okay. So now we can go ahead and press play, I think, and we should be able to play. Oh, I forgot to do one thing, and that's actually add our finish line into the scene itself. So let's go to that finish point, go into the 3D, and just move it into a better place. And now let's see. And there we have it. Now the marble kind of snaps into place. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. This was a bit of a tougher video. If you guys have any questions about it or need me to explain anything, let me know. And this is only part 1 of the video actually, because what I want to do next is I want to add a like a you finish the level kind of screen, like a you win screen. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for watching.